Perfect, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the November 1st meeting of the North Kingstown School Department Building Subcommittee meeting. This will be our final meeting before this Tuesday's election, but we'll be meeting frequently after that. We're going to begin with our first item of public comment. I know there's a sheet up there, so hopefully anyone who does want to speak has signed up. If someone could grab that sheet for me, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks. So our first speaker would be Megan Riley. Megan?
Hello, good evening. I'd like to read this to you and then ask a question or two about it. This came from an EG article on the East Greenwich School construction project that they will be voting for, and this article came out yesterday. Currently, the state will pay for 35% of EG's school construction project. A potential additional 20% reimbursement in 5% increments known as bonus points will expire in June 2024. If the bond fails in November, the town could come up with a new or altered plan, possibly with a different dollar amount, and then hold a special referendum before the June 2024 expiration to still be eligible for the up to 20% in bonus funds. The town passed a measure by a 3-2 margin in April, asking state legislators to borrow up to $180 million designated for a school construction bond. That not-to-exceed number is still applicable for future school construction bond referendums if the measure in November fails. Therefore, as long as any new or adapted school construction project is under the $180 million cap, the town council could put it to a town-wide vote without having to go back to the state legislature. Currently, East Greenwich is at the same stage that we are currently at. They are going to apply for their stage 2 approval in February of 2024. And if you look at the RIDE guidelines, I'm sure you've all seen these, the actual stage 2 approval on the RIDE guidelines comes before the voter approval. So my question is, if the bond does end up failing and the people who vote it down do so in part because they're not saying no, they're just saying not right now and not exactly like this, is there potential for our district and town council to go back to the voters, adjusting the plan in any way, and therefore putting another referendum forth in order to still be able to qualify, as it says here, East Greenwich might be, for the incentives from RIDE?
So I'll answer from the town side, and if the superintendent wants to add something, I'm sure we'll be on the same page. First, as you know, on Tuesday, there will not be an option for voting not right now. So it's either yes or no. Mm-hmm. If it does fail, I would say that I don't want to speak for the council or the school committee or the school department, but having had many conversations with them, not if it fails, but just about the importance of this project, I would think that all options are on the table.
Okay, I just want to step in and say that I think many proponents are out there, and I said not right now because what many proponents are saying is no. People who vote no are against it. There have been many comments that people who vote no are completely against it. And what I'm trying to say is that I have heard to the contrary, that it's not necessarily they're completely against it. Perhaps they're against the combining the public safety complex project with the school project. And therefore, if there's a possibility that if it does get voted down, we could still qualify for the reimbursements as well as putting, this money into the schools that is well needed. I think many of us, if not everyone, will agree, and the public safety complex separately or at a smaller amount. Is that a possibility? So you said that you think...
I would just, as town manager, and I think I can speak partly for the council, maybe for the school department. I would think that because this project is so important on so many different levels, that I would think that all options will always be on the table. Pass or fail, all options are on the table.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I would agree with Ms. Smallis. If the bond doesn't pass, right? We need to look at all of our options. We need to look at and see, okay, can we go out again for another referendum? And that is something that he can't make a decision on, I can't make a decision on. I'd have to go to, we'd have to go to school committee, we'd have to go to town council, and we'd have to have.
My specific question, I just want this answered, yes or no, or we have to come back to you, look into this, because this is the first I'm hearing of it. The major premise of the argument for the proponents is we have to do this now in order to get the incentives. By June 30th, we have to have this all done. My question is, let's say the bond fails. Is it dead in the water for getting the incentives? But it seems like East Greenwich is saying, no, we can go back and get another referendum on, get another ballot going and try to still gain those incentives. And I think that could potentially, for some people, be a really good compromise if they don't necessarily see fit to vote yes as it is now. So I'm just wondering, is it a possibility to still do something from the town and the school side to actually get us to those incentives without necessarily doing it right now when some of us feel that the plans aren't as solidified as another 6 months might give us?
I mean, my understanding is that, yes, we can, but we need approval from the town council, and we have to make sure that we get in before the deadline closes.
Okay.
And that's what East Greenwich is doing.
That's great.
We already
Okay.
have permission from the state legislature.
Well, we would have to go back.
Would we have to go
No,
back to the state
according
legislature?
to this article, you don't have to go back as long as you don't go over the certain amount.
And I appreciate that. If,
Confirm that.
I can tell you that we would have to go back unless we word everything exactly the same way.
Okay, but if you did word everything the same way,
Which means that we have one question for public safety and school, and one question for rec,
Oh.
and worded the exact same way.
That's a
If
shame.
not, we have to go back to the General Assembly.
okay.
May I add?
May I add something as well?
I'm sorry?
It's what was approved already.
Right, what was
It's we
approved
need
was
to do.
question one.
Right,
public
I understand the
safety,
public safety end.
And
That's a
question
shame.
two, rec, so we would have to go back to the General Assembly.
And if I may add one other item, is the funding that's currently allocated for this project is to get us through the bond. It's not to get us through stage 2. So we would also need additional funding to complete the paperwork to get to stage 2, to get to that next step. So there would be additional funding that would not be, that we don't necessarily right now have a source to pull it from either.
And if I can elaborate, just for discussion purposes, and I'll call the town manager of East Greenwich because he's very good. So a couple of things. I want to preface my remarks by saying that that's my understanding. I'm very comfortable with that. I'll confirm that with bond counsel, but I'm comfortable that if the enabling legislation that was written called for a question to be public safety and school and question to be rec, for us to do anything different, we would need additional enabling legislation. Also, item 2, where I want to call Andy is, I agree with the superintendent, and I think all options on the table, but if they were to have a special election in May, then that would give them 30 days to get a contract in place in order to enjoy the incentives that expire June 30th.
But we're going to be doing the same thing because we won't get stage 2 approval until,
We have from February to June. They'll have from May to June.
well, February to May, but you can put out RFPs, no? I mean, you could be doing things simultaneously to prepare.
I'm not saying it couldn't be done. We're on the same page.
Right.
All
No, that's what I'm saying.
All I'm saying is
Yeah.
that I find it interesting that they wrote something like that. I'd like to give Andy a call, only because I know how we feel
Mm-hmm.
about November to June. I can't imagine how they feel about May to June.
Right.
And the other thing too to consider, just to your point, you're saying, and then we go back and look at doing something differently. Right now, what we have budgeted gets us through stage 2. If we change everything we're doing, that's gonna cost more money.
But I'm not saying everything. And again, even in here, they
Even
actually
if we-
say,
I'm trying to speak. Even if we were to change a model or do something different with the middle school, right? That's all new design work. That means that's gonna cost the town even more money to do something like that. So, like Mr. Waterman said, what we have budgeted gets us through the stage 2. If we come back and say, okay, let's change the design, that's another cost for the town for us to do that.
okay. Mr. Waterman, just one quick thing. You were talking about money. I was looking through the current CIP plan, and I'm just thinking, and maybe I'm missing something. They were talking about Davisville Academy as being a possible site for the rec department, or consolidating Davisville into other schools, and therefore having that property left over. But in the CIP, it talks about a $100,000 playground for Davisville Academy. So I'm just wondering, are you going to be putting, monies into schools that potentially might end up, in the next couple years be
I'd like to
torn down?
interrupt, Mr. Warden, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So the reason why that's in there, because we're looking at every possibility of how we can use that building.
Okay.
It's there if we need it. We're putting it there. If we decide to put some other type of program there, because we've talked about how we would like to move administration there. Leave here, it'll save us money, right? We won't have a lease that we're paying. So if we can bring administration there, we wouldn't need the entire building. There might be other programming that we bring there. Whatever that programming might be, what if it's younger children? They would need a playground. So we're really thinking out of what it could be. That's there as a placeholder in case that's needed.
Okay.
That's
So
what
if
that's
it's not
in.
on there, we cannot get reimbursement for it.
Okay. I think I was just confused because I thought it might be used for the rec center, so I'm,
So if, I think that we've seen the plans for the rec center. If it's being used, that property's being used for the rec center is going off into the field, and then Davisville, the building would still be possibly being used by the school department.
oh, okay.
So if you look at the plans, it's off into the
Yes.
field area.
Yes.
So both would be happening over in that spot.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Mollis, do you want this? Or it's the
Yes,
article?
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mary Lopresti.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Lopresti, and I live at 29 Chestnut Road in North Kingstown. At last month's meeting, I offered to serve as a resource with a wealth of lived experience in supporting my son Michael as a student with profound disabilities who attended the North Kingstown schools for 13 years. I'm here today to lend my voice to the conversation to ensure that the needs of our physically challenged students remain a visible priority in the process of planning the new combined middle school. Presumably, the key players who are most familiar with these students, including parents, caregivers, special education teachers, teaching assistants, nurses, and therapists, will be invited to join this conversation to ascertain what some of the specific needs are. It is essential that the construction of this new facility maximize the potential for students, faculty, staff, administrators, and families to access its features while not encountering some of the physical barriers that exist in our current schools. As a visual reminder of inclusivity and accessibility, I would encourage Perkins Eastman to modify the current PowerPoint presentation to include photos of neurodivergent and physically challenged students. Perhaps I missed them, but in the handout that was available at last month's meeting, I could find images of only neurotypical students. Again, I would be happy to advise on this point. When I reached out to some of the special education staff who supported my son Michael to invite them to contribute to the conversation, his Next Steps teacher, and I'll just clarify, Next Steps is the program at Hamilton Elementary School, which is for our elementary population with moderate to profound disabilities. And those students eventually transition to what is the current Davisville Middle School. When I consulted with her name is Sharon Johnson, she provided input as her current students will eventually be moving up to the middle school. She shared that 2 smaller indoor sensory areas, as opposed to 1 larger one, are a necessity because the current one at Hamilton is not enough for 400-plus students. She would really like to stress that indoor swings be put into a sensory room area. It would be great if they could also look at a dimmer for those rooms as opposed to on and off light switches. And I'll clarify a little bit on that. So again, speaking from my experience, but other students who attended with my son, when there's a visual impairment, particularly with cortical visual impairment, it makes it difficult when there is a lot of overhead lighting. So, for example, I know at Hamilton, they had, it was sort of a colored piece of like nylon fabric that was put over the lights, but also just to have a dimmer switch available for that, for students with that disability. Shannon also suggested that someone from the Sherlock Center at Rhode Island College might be able to assist us, and that they have a wonderful orientation and mobility specialist as well as their vision specialists. In laying out the 2 entryways to the new school, it would be beneficial if someone could come in and make sure the floors, lighting, and markings can accommodate our students with cortical visual impairment, a condition that impacts some students who will eventually be at the middle school. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Mary, I just want you to know that, you know, we've heard and we recognize that that needs to be done. And
Mhm.
if the bond is passed, and that is the work, the next steps of the work of meeting with different groups to come in and to be looking at the design and giving us additional recommendations of changes that we have to make. So
Okay,
thank you.
super, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I just reminded everybody, I sent around an attendance sheet, so if we can just, oh, good, it went all the way around, great. Oh, I'll grab that, thank you. I just want to make sure it went all the way around. Next item is to approve previous meeting minutes. First, I would ask for a motion to approve the amended meeting minutes for September 18th, 2023. At the last meeting, a couple of amendments were recommended, so if there's a motion in order. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Opposed? Excellent. And then the approval for the meeting minutes of October 4th. Is there a motion in order? Is there a second? All in favor? Great. Item 4, I'll turn over to the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a presentation tonight from Perkins Eastman, and they're going to provide some updates on the design. We're also going to review the traffic study report, as well as sustainability. And we're going to go through an estimated budget. So I will, Tina, are you presenting? Roger,
I need to start us off. Thank you, Dr. Duva.
You're welcome.
We're happy to be here. As Dr. Duva said, we have a few design updates. We have our traffic consultant here to talk about the traffic findings and report, as well as our sustainability lead. So I'm just going to go around the room because we have our team here. Starting over in the corner, we have Steve D'Ambrosia from Traverse, our landscape architect. Bob Clinton from VHB, he's our traffic consultant. Kirsten Washley from CMTA, our sustainability consultant. Rob Santos, who I think everyone already knows, he's from our PA, project architect from Perkins Eastman. Inga Knox, everyone knows, from Jacobs. David Potter from PAR, myself, Tina Greco, Joe Costa, and Mike Berger. So with that, we'll get right into it, and we start with Dr. Duva giving us the overview.
So this is just an overview of our project. We know that the bond is for $167.4 million. That bond is to design, construct, do site development of a new consolidated middle school. That middle school is for grades 6 through 8 for 900 students. In addition to that, the funds from the bond will also be prioritized for certain upgrades and repairs across the district in other buildings, specifically around security upgrades at schools, roofs at the schools, HVAC upgrades, as well as some interior upgrades to benefit educational programming. This is our vision statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing that's there. We decided to keep it here so if anyone new didn't see the presentation prior, that's there. But you know, basically our vision is to really look at designing schools for 21st century learning and designing the schools in a way that the schools are a tool for education, that students and teachers can use the school itself for instruction.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the sustainability integration that we've thought through so far for the new middle school. So first of all, we want to make sure that the school itself is not just a passive structure, but an active learning tool. One of the ways that we frequently do this is by using an interactive monitor or monitors throughout the school. These can give all sorts of information. You can see here just one sample at John Lewis Elementary School. Most frequently, we love to do a live reading of the solar production and then the energy consumption, because I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. But what's really cool is the students themselves are going to be able to see that live. And a lot of times we see the educational staff, they start to integrate this into the curriculum, and it just makes a really nice interactive tool and gets students excited about sustainability. So I'm going to throw out some terms, one of which is EUI. If you've been to any of our presentations thus far, you've already heard this term, but it is really important. It's kind of the miles per gallon for a building. So how efficient is your car is, you know, the higher the miles per gallon, the better. Well, EUI is energy use intensity, and it's essentially how efficiently your building uses energy. In this case, the lower the better. So you calculate that by tallying all of the energy end uses over the course of 1 year and then dividing by the square footage to levelize that. And then you can compare one building to another. Of course, in this case, we would keep it to a school to a school. Next slide. So we've done that just as a point of comparison for the proposed school versus your average existing middle school. So your average schools right now are performing at a 72 EUI. The design that we would be targeting would be a 25 EUI. And at that level, a 1 to 3 story school can typically be offset on site to reach a goal of net zero energy for the school. So the other thing that this graph is showing is the cost that you would be paying for utilities annually for the new school versus the 2 existing schools. So what you're seeing here is around $200,000, and that reflects the current operation and split between electricity and natural gas. We have added a factor to reflect that the schools would need air conditioning and mechanical ventilation, which they do not currently have, in order to fairly compare these two numbers, because the new school would have HV and AC, so heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So what you're seeing on the new school side is, because you have that lower EUI, that more efficient building of 25, you also have directly proportional a lower utility cost that you would be paying annually for that school. I do want to point out that this $83,000 includes the offset of a solar net metering contract. So we would be designing within the budget proposed solar arrays on the rooftop to reach that net zero energy number. And the utility through a net metering contract would essentially be paying you a small amount for that energy that you're feeding back onto the grid. However, you do still have to pay for transmission, maintenance, and peak charges, so that's where the $83,000 per year comes from. Even though you're at a net zero energy usage, there's a small cost, but as you can see, it's 60% less than what you're paying currently for the 2 schools.
That's it.
Thank you, Kirsten. Okay.
Can I ask a question on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And you may not know this, so we could probably review this next week or the week after, but the town currently has a remote net metering contract in place,
Okay.
of which the school department is benefiting from that already. And so, I don't know the answer to this, would that then require us to sell off these credits, or the credits that we're gonna get on, or would we have to renegotiate our contract?
I think I would need to review your contract
Okay.
before I answer that question.
Because we're already getting the benefit of, as if solar was there, we're just getting it off-site. But,
So
does
are
that
you
mean,
purchasing RECs currently?
we
Or are
are,
you leasing land for a solar installation?
so we are purchasing.
Okay,
We
so I
do-
think
we-
it would further reduce your cost, actually, if you're purchasing RECs. That's
Yeah.
typically something that you pay for so that you can say your energy is greener. In this case, you would be creating the green energy, so the utility would be paying you for that generation.
Okay.
I can say that those numbers use your actual utility bills.
Mhm.
So the blended per kilowatt hour rate that was reflected in that 200,000 and 83,000 number should reflect everything from your current bill. But I have not seen that specific
And then we-
contract to comment on the impact.
No problem. We'd have to most likely renegotiate our contract, because now the utility units that we promised are already less than, I would assume we'd have to renegotiate that. And again, I'm just trying to be proactive. It's great
Of
news, I
course.
just want to be proactive, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, in either case, you're gonna be using less energy
Yep.
with the new school and the consolidation of 2 schools into 1. So I think that your cost would go down regardless, even without having reviewed it,
Yeah.
but I would want to review it before I answer 100%.
Thank you.
And just to confirm, that savings, the 206,000 versus the 83,000, there's no, you did not factor in the cost to actually make the improvements to the other buildings as far as the airflow. That's not factored into any savings. That's just if it was already in place.
So yes, these are what you're spending. This is not reflective of savings. So this is showing your current consumption with a multiplier. I can get into the nitty-gritty, but I'll keep it short. Essentially, I looked at the loads of the building and calculated an additional load for that mechanical ventilation and air conditioning, and then with that KBTU, I took your current rates and added a little bit of cushion. So if you were to look at your bills, you're not paying $206,000 now. You would be if you did not perform envelope upgrades or anything else and went in and added AC and ventilation to your existing schools.
Yeah, so let me rephrase it. So,
Sure.
so the bid that we received last December, just to bring in ventilated air into Wickford Middle School, I think it was $3.1 million. So we'd have to spend $3.1 million.
To spend 206 a
Correct,
year, yes,
correct.
yes, this is just annual utility cost,
Correct.
it is not reflective of any upgrade cost.
Correct, so that savings is greater.
Yes,
Ralph, the solar credits that you referenced, is that person to a contract?
Yes.
How long does the contract run?
I don't recall, but I know it's a lot more than 3 years. But we would have to renegotiate that. And I just want to be proactive.
Yeah, I
So-
just
Yeah,
was curious
no,
how
thank
long
you.
it ran.
I'm not sure off the top of my head because it was, I know originally we were supposed to get into it, but I'm not going to bore you, 25 years because we were going to lease, as you had just mentioned, we were going to build it and lease it. And then when we had some stumbling blocks because of some federal restrictions on land that we were going to lease, we ended up entering into a remote net metering contract with both Revity and Green Energy. And I have to find out exactly how long that's for, so I just want to be proactive on that.
Okay, once again, my name is Bob Clinton. I'm with VHB. We prepared a traffic impact and planning study for existing conditions, and we also looked at proposed conditions. The first thing that we did was data collection and observations at the existing 2 middle schools, and performed some data collection on existing conditions. We used the counts, the bus ridership, parent drop-off pickup volumes, and the number of faculty to project the future traffic at the new combined middle school. We then worked with the design team to develop a plan that incorporates the volumes, the parking, the traffic circulation, and off-site mitigation. And the findings of the study basically are shown on the next slide, which shows the 3 primary intersections that are going to be impacted by this project. The middle school driveway, and with this mitigation that's recommended, the site and the surrounding roadways can accommodate the projected traffic volumes. The one recommendation at the school driveway is that the trained traffic control person be positioned at the intersection with School Street during the morning and afternoon peak periods. Again, Park driveway, that minor geometric improvements occur along the driveway, and it's important to note that those geometric improvements will not impact the tennis courts, the skate park, the basketball courts, any of the activities that currently occur there. They're just minor geometric improvements along the roadway. And then at Post Road, there needs to be obviously an optimization of the signal timings. Once the new school is operational, there'll be an increase in traffic and turning movements at the intersection, and the signal timings will just need to be optimized. You'll just need to change the phasing, just the splits at the intersection. And also, there are some existing operational issues at the intersection. Whether this project goes forward or not, you should contact the DOT and work with them to make some operational modifications at the intersection.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Any questions on traffic? Okay. So,
I just want to, when you mentioned about the existing operation improvements over there, you said that those improvements or adjustments are something that would have to be done if we build a new middle school or if we don't build a new middle school. It's recommendations that are now coming out of this plan that we should look at.
Yeah, there should be an operational, the town should work with the DOT to just investigate upgrading some of the existing deficiencies at the intersection.
Okay.
Is that like a vehicle detection system or something like that? Is that what
Well,
you're thinking?
Initially, there wasn't detection on the northbound and southbound. It looks like that has been added, but there are also some, just the pedestrian crossings and some of the operational issues at the intersection just need to be looked at and just tweaked a little bit.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, hit it. Now the fun part of it.
Good evening, guys. So over the past few weeks, or even a couple months, the architectural team has been developing these interior conceptual renderings and releasing them to you as they've been finished. So tonight we just want to compile all the graphics that we've done to date and kind of run through them with this group here. Starting really at the front door, we're going to walk into the school. I'm calling it the heart of the school, which is this Main Street intersection with this stair commons, which takes you up to the second floor of the media center and the technology spaces. So this is the view right here. Kirsten was describing that sustainability dashboard. So this is one of the first things that you see as you walk into the school from the front doors. And standing right here, the front doors would be behind me as you walk into the school. It's a fantastic gathering space. There is an adjacent elevator, which takes you from this spot right up to the second floor, right to the media center as well. So it's a great spot to gather. It's directly adjacent to the auditorium, gymnasium, and the cafeteria. Art classrooms are within that blue box here, so we're picturing lots of art on display and bringing natural light deep into the space. Then we're looking at taking a peek at the courtyard just beyond this. We do have a video walkthrough at the end of this, which is great, which takes you from the front door through this space, up the stairs, into the media center, and onto the roof. So that's something we just completed this morning, so that'll be fun to watch. The second view, directly just to the left of where we're standing, the auditorium. So this is, right now we're shooting for a 450-seat auditorium. So it'll be a sloped floor at 1 to 20 pitch, so minimal pitch. No handrails are required. There is an accessible way from the house onto the stage for persons with disability, where they do not have to leave the space and come onto the stage, or a lift is not required at the front of the stage. So a person would come around the side here and enter this hallway, which is actually level with the stage. So the stage and the hallway and really the back of the house are, say, at elevation 0, right? And then the floor pitches down to the front. All the acoustic treatments on the side and the acoustic ceilings to be a high-performance space, acoustically, visually, for performance. And what you're seeing is just off the side of the stage would be adequate stage storage for stagecraft and anything associated with the stage.
So for those people that have been in our auditorium, it sounds like what you're describing with the accessibility is, if you're looking at the stage, it'd be on the left-hand side.
Just like you're at the high school, very similar to the high school, and we're in that, exactly. So visually, the person does not leave the space to access the stage, which is great. Working our way down the hallway, I think this was shared last week or the week before. This is the gymnasium. This is a fantastic space. You have the high school size main court. Ceiling is adequately sized for volleyball, for basketball. I think we're shooting for 250 seats in that range right now for bleachers. We are looking at bringing some natural light. Again, this has to be studied more. This is northeast facing, so we have to take a look at that glare, but obviously bringing natural light into the space. Even at the gymnasium, we found incredible benefits. It is an educational space, and it's really a multi-use space. So we'll look at the glazing, the amount of glazing, and the appropriate orientation.
Question on that? Just for the future, is there any thought to, I've been to a few middle schools and high schools the last few weeks, having a relative who plays some basketball, and a lot of the larger middle schools and newer middle schools and high schools have a divider in the middle, so that way you can actually have 2 basketball courts, and the courts would come down into, for tournaments and whatnot. Has that been thought about at all?
Absolutely. Right now, what we have planned is a vinyl rolled up partition, which we're seeing, I think 99% of the time now, we're kind of doing away with those heavy ones. So that would be right at mid-court, so that'll roll up, it'll drop down. It's great for gym class, so it's acoustically, it's still connected, you can still hear what's happening on the other side, you can circulate around the sides, but balls aren't going back and forth onto each court, and actually you do actually see a hoop up here, so we do have those side courts that are used for practice. Sure. And then down at the end, the southern end of Main Street, your third space is your cafeteria. And this is the one I'm kind of excited about this. This is the part of the building kind of nestles up against the existing woods.
Mike, I'm sorry, I have one question. Can you go back to the gym? Are those doors to the outside?
Correct. These are egress doors.
So
to
I'm
the
wondering
outside.
if we can just consider in bad weather, we don't want people just to walk in and on the gym floor. So
Mhm.
just to consider like what we do, maybe a vestibule or something that people enter first with as a rug or something to catch the water and the dirt before they actually go onto the
Mhm.
floor.
Sure.
Just in the design as we.
Most likely for an event or a game, people will be coming through the front door,
Mhm.
into the school, down Main Street, so they walk off.
That might be just maybe emergency exit.
Most likely it is, or nice weather days where students are, in the locker rooms. So all the locker rooms and support spaces are directly off the gym, so you can, walk right into the gym, and then you can, access the
I feel
fields.
like every time we
outdoors.
see this, we've seen this, I don't know how many times, every time we
Yeah.
look at it, we have like a different like
Yeah.
idea or view of.
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely there for egress, they're required,
Mhm.
but it's up to you how you operationally
Yeah.
utilize them, right?
Little covering or something.
Good question.
Yep.
And the cafeteria, again, it has
I like
this
that.
great southern exposure, so it's gonna get, filled with natural light, great for a cafeteria, up against the woods. So hopefully, you guys take advantage of maybe some controlled outdoor dining, just directly off this. And if you turn to the right, you'd actually look through some interior glass into the courtyard. So there's another really close proximity to the courtyard as well.
And just a question, I just want to follow up on something Mrs. LaPresti brought up earlier. When the food line, because obviously we can't see the inside right now,
Mhm.
but the height of the counters and the service area,
Yeah.
that if we have students in wheelchairs that are able to go through and to get their own food items, that height is level to a wheelchair and accessible if they're able to, go in and get their own.
Of course, yeah,
It's
we're
required.
working with our food
It's required.
consultant as well. Yeah.
Right, same thing with condiments and everything else
Yeah.
associated with the space, absolutely. Drinking
Every
fountains,
space will
all that.
be accessible.
Mhm.
I think this is one we just shared last week, so art. Art, again, right off Main Street, we love the idea of celebrating, creative, artistic spaces. Mentioned in the first few, the transparency of art on display in display cases. So this is, actually, back up, so this is this art classroom looking out. As a reminder, this is tucked into and really engages the courtyard. So it's great for some outdoor art, on fair weather days. So maybe possibly direct access to the courtyard, which is a corralled space. It's a safe space. Again, plenty of natural light. Right above this is a vegetated green roof, which you see in some of the other views. Again, trying to bring even more of that natural light deep into the heart of the school on Main Street. And the other side of this green wall here is your display cases. Typical classroom, we shared this a while back, but this is typical of all the grades. It's an 850 square foot classroom. As a reminder, each grade has a floor, and with each grade has 3 teams, A, B, and C. Each team has 3 typical classrooms and a science room, right? So this is a typical classroom. Again, taking advantage of the orientation, we're trying to orient these classrooms to take advantage of an east and west orientation, so you get either southern or northern natural light, which is great for controlling heat gain and glare. So that's something that we're going to continue to study as we develop this, making sure that we're not getting too much sun into the space, but just enough of it, right? So decent size windows. We'll talk about operable windows as we move forward. Space. And then a typical science, which I think we shared a couple of weeks ago. I believe our science classrooms here are 1,200 square feet, which is significantly larger than the average science classroom science classrooms that you currently have. So this would be an absolutely modern setup. You see some eye wash, there's some safety features obviously integrated within the space. Right now, the plan currently shows there's 3 science classrooms per grade, and they all stack. We're showing team A here, B, and C, but the science classrooms are really close to each other with a shared prep room, so there's a close adjacency with the science classrooms. Here's a view.
Mike, before you go on any further, and Inga, you might actually be better to speak to this, but I've seen some questions about at what point do we show the square footage of the classroom as 850 or science as 1,200? That's all based off of RIDE specs.
Right, and we have the educational program and planning that's available.
So
Right,
RIDE,
Yeah.
I'm correct in saying that RIDE will not let us turn in a building that's not to their specs, that's not going to meet their requirements.
It's not about necessarily letting you, it's about what they'll reimburse on.
Correct.
So if you want to double the space, you can have anything you want, but you will not be reimbursed based on that.
And we went through that exercise,
Yes, we did.
right, to bring down that square footage
Mhm.
to make sure that we're within that.
Yeah, that's what this 144,000 square foot building represents,
Mhm.
for the number of students and the grades.
And I believe all the classroom, all the spaces, that was shared and published early on, right?
Yeah.
A few months
Yeah, I
ago.
think that was what we're referring to as the chiclets.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
exactly.
chats, right, right. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to be able to reference this conversation when
Of
people
course.
ask about it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be on the record so that we can go back and reference it.
Yep, so yeah, so all the spaces that you're seeing here are still tied to the chiclet diagram, so the square footage are still accurate. Then we talked about really, the first image is really the school commons, right? Main Street and the academic kind of hub of the school. There's also, a smaller, a little more intimate commons, which is really at the center of each grade level. So it's at the center of, and really the hinge point of teams A, B, and C. Again, with great exposure out towards the woods to the south and west. And it's directly adjacent to, faculty space, restrooms, all the support spaces that you might need. It's really just a part of the corridor. So it's a really efficient use of the space. And this is a conceptual view of what that might look like. With mixed seating, it's a great space for, one-on-one, teacher and student, work, but also great for collaboration and just socialization between classes. And then this is one that we just finished today. So this is the media center up on the second floor. On the media center, looking back towards the front of the school, we've all seen the rendering and the flyover. This is really the high point of the roof. This is the main gathering space, and we'll do the walkthrough in a second, because there's a number of spaces associated with the media center, but this is really the main gathering space. Movable furniture, which we have yet to select, but even bookshelves on the wheels and casters, so it can be rearranged. North-facing glazing, so you're not going to be blinded by natural light, but you can take advantage of the views. We're already looking at how do we do some very creative kind of built-in display, which is flexible use, where you have upper and lower cabinets that can remain a little bit messy, and then you slide these whiteboards in front of it if you have another class coming in. So we know these spaces are used and heavily utilized throughout the day and evenings and weekends. So we're already looking at how these can adapt to different uses efficiently. Then we're looking, outside is really that outdoor learning deck. We'll take a closer look at that, I think, right now. So
Mike,
how do
you
you
want
want
to
to
do
do
it?
it?
Video time.
So we're going to post it. We're not going to post this tonight. I believe there's a couple tweaks we want to make to this video, and then we're going to upload it, I think, in a couple days as those tweaks are made.
There you go.
You ready?
Yeah.
There is music in the background.
On the
We're
fun
not-
version.
I'm not sure
We're
if
not
we fixed
playing
that.
it.
So walking in the front door, we should say this is really early in design, and there's some comments about too much white. We just want to show you the scale of the space and what it can be and how the look and feel. There's still a lot of design to do. But here's that stair, auditorium to the left, the dashboard right in front of you, cafeteria and gym all the way down. As I mentioned, there's an elevator just around the corner that takes you right to the second floor, which meets you right where you're going right now. Another breakout opportunity is very similar to the commons that we just looked at. This is another kind of breakout common space at the top of the corridor. Again, multi-use of the corridor. Love this view.
You want to pause the courtyard for a second?
Yeah, this is, I love this view because we've seen it in plan. We've seen it, I think, in the aerial view. But, loading it up with some people to give it some scale really shows you, what a kind of intimate space it is. It's not overly sized, but it's large enough for outdoor gatherings and classes that happen out here without disrupting, classrooms or adjacent spaces. This is your main 3-story academic building that we're just looking at. Right here on the left-hand side, that single piece, those are your 2 art classrooms. Right now, we're showing a vegetated roof on this space. And again, it's a functional, vegetated roof, but students see it throughout the day. So really, the building as a teaching tool, kind of that theme, we're going to kind of try to lace throughout this entire building to help tell the story. You see it here, then you'll see it in a minute out over the learning roof outside the media center. And then photovoltaics, we've seen them from up above, but you do get glimpses of the photovoltaics throughout the building as you look across and through the spaces. Roll. So at the top of that gathering stair, and as we're designing this, these are great tools. Looking at this might be a great, fantastic spot to actually project, even movie nights. If there's an event happening in the theater, we can project something up on that wall there as well. Now we're going to come back up, actually looking at part of the media center on the left-hand side, which kind of really overlooks the inside of the school as well. We'll talk about it as an academic hub. So it's really seen, you can see it and see through it throughout Main Street. Academic classes are down the hallway, same thing with technology. So now you walk into the media center, circulation desk on your right, and then that main space that we just looked at the rendering is kind of around the corner. So it's acoustically separated and isolated from the front door. So we're pivoting around at one of the collaboration spaces, looking back at that green roof, the vegetated roof above our classroom and all the way down. So again, the line of sight throughout the building and across the building is something that we're trying to maintain. And then you have collaboration space for smaller group, and then a main classroom, single classroom over here for 850 square feet.
Question on the classroom?
Yeah.
So, Mike, the new schools that you're building, a lot of them, instead of having walls, have glass like that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's supervision wise. That's what you. So you can close this door. We're showing some with sliding doors, but you get better acoustic separation. Like a full,
When you build those, have you ever had public safety weigh in on their thoughts on that?
So I think you're saying a classroom within an already secured room. So
That's
so
it.
like off of a main corridor, would it be glass? Is that what you're asking?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So this is not a typical
Yeah, yeah.
classroom. This is associated with the media
It's a
center.
media
Oh, I'm
center
sorry.
space.
Okay, no.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
So
It's only accessible inside the media
So
center.
when we will
I
take
thought that was
this,
typical.
yeah, no, that's a great question. When we take this, the design and sit down with police and
Yep.
and fire and safety and look at it through that lens, the doors going into all these areas would be fobbed.
Gotcha.
Right? It would make sure that the security is in there, so, if there was an intruder, they can only get so far.
But
So,
the classrooms
there's-
themselves aren't glass like that?
No.
Okay.
No,
But
typical.
even doors that have glass, typically in my projects recently, we have shading. So you have to pass it, like work with the local authorities and stuff, but we'll have shades on all the glazed windows and glass and doors that have to be closed in case of.
Yeah.
type
And
of
only because I've been
different types of
involved in so many tabletops for lockdowns and whatnot,
Yeah.
that I know the goal and the purpose of lockdowns and whatnot, that would, if that was a typical classroom, that would
Not work.
fall in the face of the goal. And I just want to hear what public safety ever weighed in, but that's great. Thank you.
No, and the amount of glass will always be, a discussion, and this is a starting point.
Looks great.
Right, and we're sensitive to it. A
Regretfully.
lot of these views that we're looking at are actually inward-looking glazing.
That's
Yeah,
how we
it is
have to take
unfortunate.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the views that we're taking advantage of are inward-looking from the courtyard, so on the safe side of the school. But as we develop this, we'll scrutinize and take a look at the amount of glazing, cost, safety, just practicality. Well, I'm sure it will scale back.
And again, I'm not saying anything out of school, so I'm a little bit careful, but I shouldn't be as careful as I am, because the bottom line is so public. At the tabletops, the whole idea is they've found that when the door's locked and they can't open it, they'll go to the next classroom.
Yes.
But if it's glass, that may not be the case, so,
Yeah.
thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely, yeah. A lot of discussions.
Regretfully, you have to think that way.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so that classroom just opens up directly to the media center, that's it. That collaboration space on the left. Technology spaces, there's 3 technology classes, strung along just down the corridor here. One of the technology classes has that physical connection to the media center, something we spoke of early in programming, kind of creating that connection and synergy with the media center and technology and STEM classrooms. And then we're going to turn the corner and access to our educational roof. And we have, ideas of an educational PV panel, that students can come up and actually tap into and learn on this level and actually, kick the tires and really touch it.
Will they be able to charge a cell phone?
I think it'd be better, right?
On the sunny
Put your
day.
wires hanging down, yeah. Obviously, we're, safety, obviously, we're looking at, guardrail heights significantly tall, so it's a safe space. Again, you see this is actually rimmed with greenery, so another green roof, a functional green roof. This also serves as another buffer, right, from the edge of the roof. And outdoor science areas, I think there's opportunities for gardens, there's outdoor opportunities for those technology classrooms that also open up to this roof here, so.
And Mike, are those the technology classrooms that we're kind of seeing those windows?
Exactly, so the one that connected was technology, the general technology, then you have robotics right here, and then coding is the one on the end.
And those plant boxes that's there for use by students and staff, if they want to do gardening or any type of use, it wouldn't just be there.
Sure,
for-
we're putting out there
right,
for
like
discussion
when-
reasons.
Yeah, right, like that's something that we could think about of how we use this area.
Yeah, whether it's here, in the courtyard, or even just south of the school, I think there's a lot of design, a lot of
Would be a
opportunities.
nice
there.
extension of a science classroom.
Exactly. Then we end here with the butterflies. So we'll make it for 2 weeks. We do want to spin around, I think, a little differently in the media center, so you capture the main room. So we're going to work on that tomorrow and hopefully get that done by the end of the week so we can upload it.
Question on those staircases in the middle, they go one side up, one side down, or is it just, you know, everybody can go up? And are there other staircases on either end of the corridors?
Well, I think that's something we have to talk about. We're going to size them to code, make sure they're large enough.
If you
And
think one in the middle would probably not be enough.
Often, the stairs are, they're required to be, so wide that you need actually a center handrail. So whether how the school wants one way up, one way down, I think that's a way to do it. So they'll be wide enough so you can get two-way traffic.
Hey, Mike, why don't you explain the academic block, the number of stairs that we have in the academic block? I think that's what the question was, if you just go back to the, just point out the 3 stairs.
Yep, so this is, I'm calling it the common stair. But we do have a stair on either end with an adjacent elevator. And then the stair in the middle is actually required by code just because of the number of students that we have. But those would be sized, wide enough. Usually it's between 6 and 8 feet per run, up. So that's,
Right.
so you can put a mid.
900's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
Well, go here once in a fire drill.
Yeah, and as a reminder, we placed the elevator in, this corner stair, kind of a celebrated stair on the end outside. So a 8th grader going up to the top floor, if that's where they are, they can come down either corridor, go up the elevator or the stair without having to circulate through either 6th or 7th grade. So we're trying to keep the grades separated where we can.
So are there 2 elevators or?
Right now we have 2.
You do have 2, okay, that's right, I just couldn't see if one in each corner. That says the elevator.
Exactly.
Yeah, for convenience.
That's it. We put these in here. You guys have seen these, the massing of the building. I think the video kind of tells a
This
story.
is what we've been using on social media, on Facebook,
Yeah.
sharing out
Right.
on.
So we ended up right here at the end of the video. We came out of the media center, right here. So media center, technology, coding on the side. And then this is the stair we talked about on the end, and the aerial view.
Great.
So that's,
Thank you, Mike.
sure.
We're going to change directions a little bit and talk about costs. We have updated our cost estimate. These numbers that you're seeing here were really produced by PMNC, which is our professional independent cost estimator. If you guys don't know PMC, they are the premier regional cost estimators. They've done a lot of estimating for Perkins Eastman as well as for Jacobs.
And for Jacobs?
And a number of architects and engineers throughout the region. And when I say region, I mean Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. They've just completed actually a couple of estimates for us at Lowell High School, Mount Gray Regional High School, and the UMass Science Center that we're just finishing up. So they're very well known. In fact, for this particular project, we've been working with Peter Bradley, who is the principal and president of the company. He's had his company for about 18 years, so he's been doing this a very, very long time. They're a relatively small firm. I think they have about 12 people, but they do spend a lot of time with their architects and engineers doing very detailed estimates. And he couldn't be here tonight, but you're gonna eventually see Peter making lots and lots of presentations to this committee and to the town, and talking about estimating in great, great detail. And he's gonna be very, very instrumental in making sure that we meet our budgets and we make sure that this project, upon bidding and upon completion, will fall within the estimate. So we've been talking about $130 million, and how that's broken up is as follows. The top line, what states new middle school building, it's about 144,000 square foot. We talked about, the size of the building being within RIDE state guidelines for the enrollment as well as for the grade configuration. He's estimating that about $69 million. But to that number, we also need to add demolition and abatement of the old middle school. And he's estimating that at about $1.55 million. On top of that is a site work number. And, you know, you've been seeing all of the drawings to date.
Joe,
Yeah.
it's 2 pages, so each person has to have 2 pages. I can walk around and fix that.
Thank you, Inga.
And this is also available on the webpage.
Yeah.
Right,
The
I'm
pro-
sorry,
the
and I'm
school
sorry,
project
Joe, I
webpage.
felt like people weren't
No,
listening.
no problem.
Apologize.
Yeah, so they have the,
Let me correct it.
they have the uniformat
I will
also?
make sure everybody has what they need.
Does anyone need one?
So you are the address.
Inga, they have the uniformat, right? The one that's titled Construction Cost Summary?
So you need this one.
Yes.
Like that.
Joe, this is what she passed out.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so we have the overview of what's
Right.
on the screen right there, and then the second page is the construction cost summary.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to point out that the $69 million is made up of the sheets of paper that you see here that are labeled Construction Cost Summary. And what those 2 pieces of paper do is they break up the building by trade, really.
Okay, so you're good?
I'll let Inga finish
Good?
with
Good?
that.
Good? Okay, perfect. Do you need?
Okay. You all set, Inga?
Yes.
Okay, so I was explaining the $69 million. So if you look at these 2 pages here, these 2 pages feed into the $69 million, so you can get a sense of how the estimate of the building cost are broken down by things like foundation, basement construction, superstructure, exterior enclosure, roofing, interior construction. These are systems that make up the building. And so all those systems feed into that $69 million number. And you can see there's some fairly large numbers, especially in the plumbing, HVAC, fire protection area. Those trades have seen enormous amounts of cost escalation within the last 5 to 10 years. And so those numbers all feed into the building. Now, just to be clear, we have not designed any plumbing yet. We haven't designed the mechanicals or lighting or any of that stuff. But PM&C have a very, very good sense of what those numbers will be because of the experience of working with Perkins Eastman and other architects on schools that are very, very similar. So they can predict those numbers very accurately based on historic data and working with the design team and engineering team. So we have a very high level of confidence that these numbers are going to hold and hold for the number of years it's going to take us to design, get approved, and build this building. These are very important numbers. But anyway, in addition to the cost for the new building, there's also necessary to apply money for the demolition and abatement of the existing building. The existing building's about 96,000 square foot, and we're gonna have to first remove any hazardous material and then take the building down, remove the foundations and footings, and then ultimately repurpose the footprint of that building for other purposes, in this case, ball fields and parking. The other big number on this sheet is, of course, the site work. Now, we have a very large site where we're moving fields around, we're putting new parking, we're doing new driveways, we're doing new drainage, all that kind of stuff. And that $13 million number represents the funds that we're gonna need to do all of that particular site work. And also keep in mind that those funds are going to have to also address phasing plan. Now, we're still working on a phasing plan to show how the new building can be built while keeping the ball fields operational as well as begin park operational. We're not quite ready to show you that. We still have to do a little bit more work on that. But that particular plan is part of this $13 million site work package, okay? The other thing we've got is contingency and escalation. As you know, we have to sort of predict what the cost of construction is going to be in the future. And our estimator is really, really good at that. And as we all know, the cost of construction has been fluctuating wildly, at least the last 2 or 3 years. There seems to be a calming of the market, and things are stabilizing a little bit better. The supply chain is getting much more accommodating for construction. It used to be that we were ordering things way in advance and it was taking forever to get them. That seems to be calming down quite a bit. So our escalation is actually dropping a little bit, which is good news. But we still have to accommodate escalation and contingency for those unknowns, for things that are gonna crop up during the design, during the engineering, during the site investigation that will be continuing. So that 14 million is part of that work. The other thing we've got is we've got construction management costs. Now, the construction manager on this particular project is going to have a lot of internal costs, including general conditions. They're gonna have to have general requirements, bonding, insurance. There may be a small permit that's required for ADA on this particular project, but they're also going to need money for fees, and there's also a construction contingency that has to be built into what's called as a GMP, or guaranteed maximum price. And so that $14 million is made up of a lot of small pieces that they're gonna need in order to manage the construction of this building. If you add up this column of numbers, you're about $112,500,000. Now that's the construction side, or sometimes referred to as bricks and mortar. All of that's made up of all those numbers. But there's also soft costs, and soft costs are fees, expenses, and also FF&E costs. So those are built into that number. And in this particular project, it's about 15 or 16% of the construction cost, which is certainly within the RIDE guidelines of 20%. And add it all up, it's about $130 million, just a hair above 130. And of course, we're going to continue to update those numbers and tweak them, and we're going to have lots and lots of additional conversations. But the good news is we're certainly well within what we've been saying, and we're very confident that this project can certainly be built for $130 million. Now, the other piece of this is the actual net cost to the town. You see in that big yellow box, it says 58.5, and what that is representing is what the town's share will be of the cost of the $130 million that was just reported. So, with the incentives of around 55%, we're expecting the building net cost to be about $58.5 million, which is, for that school, all the site and everything else that goes in the building, which is a pretty good deal.
So Joe, at the public comment or public forums, people highlighted some other schools that have gone over budget. That's what that contingency fund is for, correct? That's not allocated for anything specific. That's the buffer in case something comes in higher than anticipated?
Yeah, typically what happens in the early stages of design that we're in, Mike's done a terrific job showing all of the architecture, and in fact, Peter's team has used the images to create these numbers. But typically at the very beginning, our contingencies will be high, and as we develop the architecture and the engineering, the contingency drops and gets absorbed in the project, or gets allocated as owner's contingency if it's not necessary. But all of those contingency funds are there to allow the project to stay in budget and be built within that $130 million number. So those are really for unknowns and for things that could crop up.
And the escalation is for those potential, basically market-driven increases in cost, which is now, the PMNC did and calculated. It's based on the formula. It's an escalation of 5% per year, but it's a staggered formula that gives you an escalation to midpoint of construction. The way they calculated, and this is the escalation that we see in the marketplace today. So previously escalation, so that changes. Before 2019, 2020, escalation was slightly lower. Hence certain current overages in budgets because escalation was not set at that percentage before.
So I'm glad you
A
brought
lot of,
that
a
up.
lot of the projects that were estimated at 2019 are built now, and they're kind of where they are. And this is what we're seeing, is because the escalation previously was about 3.5%. That's how we estimated projects. Now we estimate, like during 2020, 2021, we even estimated with escalations up to 7% a year. So now the market drives at an average of 5%. Of course, we can't predict anything, but we can, what estimators do is that they take market conditions and everything that happens around us and build it into what market drives it being, right?
And what we like about PMC is they've got their eyes on the region, and they don't only look at their own projects, but they also look at the projects that others are doing, and they actually share information amongst other estimators, as well as within the community of construction management and trades. So there's this network of communication to sort of get the, get the pulse of what the different trades are doing. Some years, concrete gets expensive, some years masonry, some years it's metal. It varies from year to year, and what they do is they take all that information, synthesize it, and be able to guide the design team as well as our clients in making decisions about the building, so that at bid day, we're actually able to award the project, and we don't have to make major cuts, we don't have to redesign or anything like that.
So I guess one of the things I'm wondering is, do you see larger contingencies in projects you're doing now in 2022, 2023 than you were seeing in like 2019? Are we kind of planning for some of this unknown still?
Yeah, certainly on the escalation side, Mike, absolutely, right, that is certainly there. But contingencies on the design
They're
side.
standard.
Yeah, they're pretty standard,
Yeah.
Definitely.
the
Contingencies
escalation
for
that
design
Yeah.
are standard, industry standard. That's what we see across the board, where a contingency becomes hard cost once it's designed. So basically, that contingency is for the time when those plans will be detailed and developed, right? So it becomes construction cost. Escalation is a variable that changes.
Right.
And
So-
we're definitely seeing higher escalation.
So to go back to your concrete example, if concrete is estimated right now at a set price, but it comes in $1 higher a square foot, that's where you're gonna go to the contingency fund to offset that cost.
Correct. One of the factors that affects cost of construction is the cost of energy, right? Because everything requires energy to transport, to create, to build petroleum, those kind of products. So the cost of energy varies widely, and that has an immediate and strong effect on the cost of construction. So all these contingency funds and all this escalation is sort of keeping that in mind, and so that if we see a spike in the cost of oil or energy, the project can absorb that and continue without having to, either redesign or to get additional funding. That's what the whole purpose of these escalation numbers are.
And same thing to avoid value engineering.
Correct.
That's a term we've heard.
Right. So the thing about it is, if the money is not used or needed, well, that means it doesn't have to be bonded, and it could be either used for other capital improvements or simply go back, just not be used. That's the beauty of that. But you won't know that until you're actually cutting the ribbon and students are walking in the building.
Estimates along the way, too.
Yeah, oh yeah, so Dave, remind me, so at each step, including the early step, we will do estimates that are highly detailed, and what we'll do is we'll reconcile those estimates with the construction team, and we'll have multiple opinions looking at the drawings and specs and coming up with, again, that estimate of what we think the building will be. And we'll do that actually 3 times before we actually go to construction. Okay?
Mr. Costa, in one of your earliest presentations to the committee, where you first rolled out that number, 167 million, I noted that it was a lot of money, and you represented to us that you were deliberately pricing high because you knew that there were too many unknowns at that point, and you were going to work your way through it, and it was your hope that the number would be much lower. I just want to observe it. I think you lived up to that, and I appreciate the expertise and the effort that you've made to try and give us as clear a picture as you can of what you think these costs are going to be.
Thank you. As you recall, that was for the quid site.
Yep.
And for a larger building, so that contributed
Right.
to the number going down. And the more information we can provide to our estimator, the more accurate our estimates can be. Until at the very end, they have highly detailed construction documents with every bolt and every piece of steel figured out in the building. But we've got a very high level of confidence in the abilities of PM&C and our design team to bring this project in within that number.
Also, something we discussed today with the estimator, the unit pricing is also escalated properly. So it's not just the escalation that's carried in addition, it's also the way the estimates are done is that the unit pricing, each detailed item as a backup gets escalated at the time when they think it's going to be purchased. So they're not using necessarily unit pricing for material of today. They're using, they have a formula of how they assume what it might be within the same kind of escalation. So to your point, yes, it is possibly a little bit inflated if you look at it right now, but we're not buying it right now, right? We're buying it in a year.
I don't
Two.
view it as inflated. I
Right.
view it as we're trying to err on the side of worst-case scenario here.
Right.
And that's what I appreciate about this, so.
Okay, you want to do your thing?
Sure. I think this is more of a repeat from previous presentations and conversations in case somebody wasn't here or has more additional questions relative to reimbursement and relative to incentives. We just saw the estimate of $130 million middle school. The bond is 167 million. There are obviously other projects that are going to go into this scope. So we did put similar assumption what the town share may be with assumption that all incentives are received, so 55% reimbursement. $167 million worth of work will cost to the town roughly $75.3 million. Now the bonus points are expiring in June of 2024. The key to receiving the bonus points, just to add to earlier conversation, is submission of stage 2 on February 15th. That submission doesn't happen, regardless of when the vote is, the town will not be eligible for the bonus points. So that is the key. And then the next level is then there is a certain amount of time that the town has to appropriate funds. And I'm sorry, I do not remember exactly what it is, but there is, I feel like 6 months, no. I want to say about 90 days, but I can double check, I don't remember. But there is a period of time from the time of invitation to the program to the time when the funds have to be appropriated. So that's what drives the incentives. Again, there are several options to receive additional incentives, up to 20 points in addition to 35. That's how we get to 55. We are targeting from 19 to 20, depending. The wild card right now is the replacement. Once the district knows if a replacement incentive can be achieved by recalculating the FCI of the existing buildings, we can target either 19 or 20 points additionally. Health and safety is 5%, educational enhancements is 5%. Those two are almost a given. Well, they're not almost a given, they are a given. If there is a new building and the building is built to or above code. So obviously your building is healthier and safer, and there is an obvious educational enhancement to the building. So you get the extra 10, newer and fewer, and the district will receive that because there is now one consolidated middle school, not two middle schools. And the students are all middle school age students are in the one building. So that gives 15, almost a given of 15, and then to get to 19, if the replacement point does not get achieved because either school, there's no opportunity for the FCI above 65 for existing, one or both, it doesn't matter, just one has to qualify. We can target the energy and water efficiency bonus, which is up to 4%, and net zero building automatically qualifies for 4. It is an addendum to the CHIPS system, the New England CHIPS, which is what every new building in Rhode Island, and actually I think it's every school building in construction has to meet its sustainable or green requirements, kind of like what LEED is. It's a slightly lighter version of LEED, I think. Rhode Island has its own section in New England CHIPS, and that's where the incentives of 4% come from. Any questions on the previous slide, just in case, because any questions on that? We have discussed it several times, but, okay. All right, again, a little bit of a recap on schedule. If the bond passes on November 7th, we have until November 15th to submit stage 2 to RIDE. The approval will be received it's sometimes in May, and all the contracts have to be awarded, not necessarily signed, but awarded by June 30th of 24. We plan on breaking ground in June of 25, so we do need some time. The team needs time to produce final drawings and also submit to RIDE during that time on what's called stage 3. So stage 3 is 3 more submissions to RIDE during design phase. So each phase, schematic design, design development, and construction documents get submitted to RIDE and reviewed to make sure that the team and the building still is built and designed per the requirements of the state. And then 24 months construction with assumed existing building demolition over the summer of 2027, right? So the new building would be built and will be ready for occupancy for September of 2027 school year, while the existing middle school, the Davisville Middle School, would be demolished over that summer break so that it's not disruptive during that new school year. And then field work would happen would happen during that fall, so would be mostly fully complete by the end of 2027. Some possible comebacks on the landscaping.
Facility projects? Facility projects?
Oh, right, so in general, the district has 5 years to complete the program. So they get invited to the Housing Aid program in May of 2024. That gives them 5 years, so not full years, but May to May. So, well, it's more like June to June. So June of 2029, all projects have to be completed and submitted for reimbursement. Any questions?
Would construction manager contracts have to be awarded on the facility projects as well in order to get the bonus points?
No. It doesn't have to be. So if the town or the district would like to receive full reimbursement points, so for example, the middle school qualifies for 55. If you'd like to receive 55% on the entire $167 million worth of work, you have to submit it all together. So you cannot submit it separately. So all the and you don't want to award. So as long as you have one project, such as middle school, with a construction manager and the qualification, all the other projects can basically piggyback on the submission. However, you have to wait until all those projects are complete. So potentially, you will not be able to submit on, even though the middle school might be finished in 2027, if you want to get your other projects in addition to that, you have to make sure that they'll submit it in one.
That's important on our end as far as timing the debt cliff and timing the bond issuance and the interest rate. So what, I just want to repeat what I think I heard. What you're saying is that in order for the extra $30 million, $35 million of projects to get the 55%, we wouldn't start receiving reimbursement on the 167 million until after June of 2029.
Well, in reality, if you think about it, most of those health and safety projects will have to be done over summertime, probably. I'm sure there are some things you can do during the school year, but knowing that there isn't a lot of swing space in the district and there isn't much you can do over little breaks, right? So you don't really have that summer of 2029 because you have to submit to write by June 30th, and school is out in middle of June. So you can take advantage of your summer of 2028, but not necessarily summer of 2029.
Right, so by June of 2029.
So you probably, and then
So
we'll
could
finish the
submit-
middle
so-
school at the end of '27, so all the bills and punch list and everything probably will not be done until middle of 2028. So you're probably gonna be ready to submit it all together regardless of, so it's not like you're sitting there on a fully completed middle school and then waiting for 2 years. That's really not the case. It's probably 2028 target to submit on everything. There is another way to do this. You could certainly award all of the health and safety projects to a construction manager at the same time, contingent on different variables. So the construction manager can be awarded based on certain criteria, like their fee and different things that they will charge, and phased construction in different projects. And then the two are not related to each other.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If I understood correctly, I'm sorry, by June, you are supposed to have somebody, a contract awarded to somebody,
A construction manager.
just construction manager.
Well, so the architect, owner's project manager, and construction manager has to be awarded. Now, the way construction manager works is that construction manager gets awarded based on certain criteria, like these percentages of what fee they will charge, what is percent of their general conditions that they will charge. So there are certain things that they will submit on price-wise, but they don't have to buy out the job. They will buy out the job when the job is ready to be bought out. So when
Which
the
is
drawings
the
are
year
completed.
after.
Correct. Now, the construction manager will be awarded based on pre-construction services, and we will determine, the team, North Kingston will determine when those pre-construction services are needed, and that will be put into the RFP. So for example, you don't need pre-construction services in June because there is nothing for them to do, so why pay them for pre-construction, right? The pre-construction services is basically their participation in design, helping in identifying long lead items, helping with those reconciled estimates that we have to do. Phasing. So there is a lot of work that has to do, but it has to start a little bit later. So that is all identified in the RFP, so they get awarded, and then based on the schedule that we put together, they will know when their services will
No,
start.
I get that. No, I was getting a little confused because I personally thought that by June, you should have a contractor ready to
No.
go.
No.
Or signed. That's what I was getting, something here in my head is not working. Now I get it. So you are
Yeah.
just getting ready in June with the full construction document process and contract award in 2025.
Right, so I actually have at next meetings, I can do a presentation on the difference between construction manager and method. It's construction manager delivery method versus design bid build delivery method, which is what you think of kind of like a GC. So a GC comes in and actually has to give you a price for the full job, but for that to happen, they have to have drawings to price.
Correct.
Which they don't. So construction manager doesn't have to do that because they're brought in based on pre-construction services and then buying out the job. But there is a competitive way to figure out which construction manager is going to be more or less expensive based on their fees. So it's a slightly different process.
No, I get it. I misunderstood, my misunderstanding.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any other questions on anything that we showed?
I had a question.
Oh, yeah, oh, hi.
So on the traffic study, and only because this has been quite a popular discussion point with the public, I guess I saw your bullet points, but what does it mean to the general public in terms of what does this traffic study tell us? Clearly traffic increases, but what do we tell the concerned citizen?
Yeah, no, that is a fact. You know, obviously, it's a larger school, you're gonna have more traffic, and we can manage that traffic by implementing at the 3 locations, you know, having a trained person directing traffic at the middle school driveway. The good thing is you already have like 2 exiting lanes, a left and right turn lane. There may be some modifications, but that's in the final design. The buses are going to be separated and going through the McGinn Park. So separating those is a good thing. The improvements at Post, there is capacity at Post Road to accommodate the traffic. It's just an optimization of the signal timings, just reallocating the time from different phases at the intersection. So it's not, you know, most projects of this size, you have to do some significant off-site improvements. There aren't a lot of costs related to these off-site improvements, which is a good thing for the budget of the project. When they talk about those contingencies, costs, you know, there's things that arise when you're doing the final design plans. With this, we don't really see a significant amount of costs associated with off-site improvements to mitigate the traffic impacts of this project. And it was discussed earlier too, that these are such concentrated peaks, and we've all experienced that. It's just a short period out of the morning and the afternoon peaks.
Excuse me, I believe you know that there is a fire station on that corner. And that corner, I've been driving it as part of DPW, and it's a little bit tricky. I'm wondering if at some point DOT or somebody has to reconfigure that corner.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think there's been discussions as we move forward in this project that, you know, whether this project goes forward or not, the fact that that you need to accommodate the access egress of emergency vehicles, and so there should be upgrades to that signal to better accommodate. That's one of the things when I said, you know, that the DOT needs to be, the town needs to approach the DOT to make some of these modifications and upgrade some of the equipment at that intersection.
In an earlier conversation, did you describe something such as like the garage door goes open, it can start like freeing up traffic to allow the engine or rescue to get out?
Yeah, there's a couple of different methods that are used by various cities and towns. There's a hardwired preempt that can preempt the signal and clear the intersection.
There is a communication between the fire department and the traffic signal.
Right, and then there's also Opticom systems.
That's what we have.
You guys have an Opticom, so they have emitters in the trucks too. So if you are that close, it's good to have, it needs to be further studied, but it may be good to have the two-pronged approach.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
All the equipment in this school would be all brand new?
Correct.
And
Yes.
the other stuff, it'll be, well, you know, up to decide what, if it's good enough to put somewhere else,
If there's something that was just recently purchased, is in perfect condition, we would certainly
Yeah.
move it to the new building.
That's what we're going through with the high school.
Yeah, you know.
Trying to figure out what to do with the,
And actually, Jack, to your point, Bob and I were just talking about the boilers at both middle schools and where we might be able to make upgrades to some of our other schools,
yeah, so if you-
based off the
that's
age
one
of those
area
boilers.
destroy the building.
Right, no,
Yeah.
we were talking about doors and boilers and things that are easily swapped from building to building.
Yeah, I know even with the high school, we went through everything, something we could send all the places we did, and then.
We met with one of our HVAC technicians yesterday and had that discussion as well. What place is the best place to, ultimately, we have 5 fairly new boilers. Where should we put them? And she has great input for that as well.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
One question.
Wait, wait, wait.
I
Sorry.
just wanted to say that I'm so pleased with the job you all have done, and I really think that, you know, with kids this age and younger, one of the biggest things is to allow them to have a passion. And I look at your plans and the things you talk about, and you truly are going to fire kids' passions in this school. And I've seen literally kids' lives saved by being able to do that. And the spaces you talk about for music, for art, for tech, having an auditorium where you can have presentations with the whole school to celebrate what kids are doing, spaces for art. It's really very encouraging, both for teachers, for kids, and for our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. There you go, thank you. Any other, Dr. Duba, any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions. We do have one other item on here for the building committee to talk about the capital improvement plan. Before we do end the meeting, you're welcome to stay, but it does not involve you, but
Okay.
you're welcome to leave. I know you guys have
Okay, so, okay, all right, good.
We'll give them a minute just because I know they have a long ride back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I know earlier, stuff was sent out regarding capital improvement, there was information on the roofs, and we passed out the capital improvement plan in the past. Does everyone have that, or do you need copies? I can make a few copies right now. Do you have the document from the previous meeting on the capital improvement?
If you like, I can also pull it up online.
Yeah, but do you,
I have it on PDF, I didn't have it available.
does anyone want copies? I could go quickly and make a copy if. Let me just put it up here, I think that'd be.
That's it'd be interesting.
So the microphones are still live, so if somebody's having a private side conversation, it might
Yeah,
be-
the microphones are on. We didn't pause the video or anything, so microphones are on. So back in September, we gave everyone a draft of a capital improvement plan, and that's something that we've been working on. I do need to, present a capital improvement plan to the school committee as part of the budget process. In addition, I'll be, and I'm sure others will be part of that presentation in December, presenting our capital improvement plan to the asset management committee. So we are looking at finalizing what the capital improvement plan will be over the next few weeks. And we are looking for feedback from this committee. Part of the role of this committee as advisory is to advise us as a school department and bringing information forward to the school committee. So we do have a draft of capital improvements that are needed across the district. We know, Mike, if you can scroll down to the bottom. look right there, if we know, looking at that, the total cost of these improvements is just over $72 million. And we know from the cost of, I'm sorry, not the cost of the bond, but the amount from the bond and the amount of what the middle school will be, we also know that if to be able to do all this work, right, it's not all going to be covered through the bond. So we really need to prioritize what's most important for us over the next 5 years to be able to do this work. And the needs came out of the recent facility assessment study that was done through Rouse, and we presented that back at the meeting in September, and prioritized the ones and the twos and the other needs that are there. So what we need to do is really look at this list and say, okay, what is the most important work that we want to be able to say, here's going to be our focus over the next. So, typically your capital improvement plan, you're looking out 5 years. And every budget cycle, you're presenting that to show what it is that you're going to be working on. And we want to really look at what's most important and necessary in the buildings. We know we'll have roughly $37 million from the bond if it's passed. And each year, my understanding is we get about $500,000 operating with the town to put towards capital improvement. But what we also need to remember is that emergencies happen, right? As we go through a year, it's just like our own home. We can't always predict everything that's going to happen in these buildings. And we have 9 buildings across the district that we need to maintain. And it's really important that we prioritize what those needs are and have the funding to make sure we can keep up with the improvements that need to be made. $72 million is a lot of money of what we're looking at. We don't have $72 million. And we're not going to get $72 million from the town either over the next 5 years. So we need to look at this and prioritize. And we're looking for that feedback from all of you as the building committee as well. We also know when we put the stage 2 application in, we're probably going to go over what that amount is with the bond, because if we want to get reimbursed on any of these projects, they need to be part of the plan and approved. So what we submit in the stage 2, right, may be over that, so that way we can, as we go through the process, we might have to pick and choose what we're doing. And as long as it's on the approved list, we know we can get reimbursed for that work. If it's not on there, we cannot get reimbursed.
So can you just submit it at the 72 and then work backwards
We could,
from
but
that?
we
you
could, but
think
to
there's
me,
something that could
that's
be
not
eliminated?
realistic,
Okay,
right?
all right.
I just want to make sure we're putting something realistic
Okay.
forward.
There's also a lot of architecture
Yeah,
and engineering that goes with each one of these. We have to turn in a schematic design for every little project. So if we pick the whole entire thing, our cost, our soft costs are gonna go even much higher. So that we try to save there, because you can't do it all, we know we can't.
You have to provide a budgeting and funding plan, so
Right.
there's some room for it,
That's
but you
unrealistic.
can't go.
Yeah, we have to show them how we can pay for it.
Our safety issues, the high priority, more or less. I see vestibules and things like that, things that you have to do, I guess, more or less.
And there may be other opportunities for grants, right? We really need to look out there and see what grants are out there to help with the school safety. I know we've had conversations about that. There could be other funding opportunities between the town and the state to be able to do those safety upgrades. We want to make sure too, roofs, as we said earlier, every single roof at the elementary level needs to be replaced. That's really important that I think, I'm just going to say as one area that we prioritize. The safety and security of the buildings is very important. We know there's some ventilation work we have to do. We also would like to look at some educational enhancements if possible. But when you start looking at this list, there's priorities that need to be made, and part of the role of this committee is to also help in that process of prioritizing what we're saying we're going to do over the next 5 years. And every year we have to look at it, right? So the plan we put in front of the committees for the FY25 budget, it's going to get re-looked at for the FY26 budget and the FY27. So there might be changes that we make along the way as well, or add to it.
From a process point of view, Wickford Middle and Davisville Middle is not part of this plan, correct?
We did not include Davisville Middle and Wickford Middle in this list because we're looking at building use.
So, hopefully this isn't the case, but if the bond doesn't pass, we would have to revise this from council
And
February 15th.
and we would have to add in the 2 middle schools.
Yes.
And that would increase the cost, the budget.
Do you want us to talk about the roof assessment that we
Yeah,
just?
why don't,
yes. Bob, I'll let you take the lead on that.
I just wanted to ask one question, and I'm sorry, Ralph, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I just, from my own knowledge, so the bond passes,
Yes.
right, Tuesday. Will we still get our $500,000 in capital, or will the town look at it like, oh, we just got 167 million, use that? Because when I look at this, and let me explain, I look at this and we all want to make decisions on what's best to use the funding from the bond. But I look at some of the smaller things, when you have a $500,000 capital, it's easy to pick away at these smaller things and use the big funding for the big projects like roofs and HVAC. So that's just.
And that's not putting me on the spot at all. So in the end, that's a council decision. But I would present my budget to the council, and I hope that I could encourage them to support whatever I present.
Okay.
I would say that $500,000 would be on an annual case-by-case basis. So for example, and this is a completely, this isn't accurate, it's just an example. I'm about to put together the 24-25 budget. I may call the superintendent and say, what do you have in capital? What do you have in fund balance? And now when I'm doing the budget, I'm saying, well, this is a tough year. You know, this is a tough year on the school side. They needed 4%, revenue's down, the town's up 4%, and I may call the superintendent and say, what do you have in surplus, what do you have in capital? What I'm gonna do is, and you may object, I'm gonna propose a budget to the council which provides 0 in capital, but ask that you take $500,000 from your surplus and fund it this year. It's a real tough year. And then next year, it's, wow, electric boat pilot went up, and Infinity pilot went up, tax revenue's up, costs are pretty down. We had a great contract here with 1033, and now all of a sudden we have $750 to give to the town. I see there's an annual discussion between the school department and the town every single year, with $500,000 being the goal. It seems like that's your goal.
Even though we'll have.
But I don't see the 167 playing a role in that. I guess to answer your direct question, I can't speak for the council, but I know how again, their feelings have been very, I think they're probably more compassionate than even I am.
Okay.
And so I don't see any of us sitting down and saying, oh, they got $167 million, we don't have to put anything there anymore. I don't see that ever happening, but that's.
And again, I was just thinking, because as we plan this out as a group, we could say, okay, there's the potential of $500,000 in capital. Here's these projects here, right? There's security vestibules is 197,000. We could kind of associate funds that way. That's the
Gotcha.
my
That makes
thinking.
sense. That makes
And
sense.
I would advocate from the school department's end,
Of course.
along with the school committee, that we're going out for this bond because there's all this work that we have to do. So this is the additional money in order to do this work. And still, we need to maintain our buildings, and we have the requirement through the state of a certain percentage based on our operating budget that has to go towards maintaining your buildings. And we still need those funds. That's separate from the bond. And so I would, just advocate for us that we still need those funds, right? Because it's just like running your own home. You need to have that account, that savings account that you have your money in order to take care and maintain your home and the emergencies that come up. Is the same thing as a school department for the town. Because if we're not doing that, then how are we maintaining our buildings and how are we dealing with emergencies that may come up? We also, on our end, need to also make sure we're putting a plan in place of what's that cycle of taking care of the buildings and knowing what's the end of life for all of the systems that we have, and when are we gonna have to expect that? But that's like for the future. I think now we're looking at, okay, where are we? And we're playing catch up on that right now.
Right, and if I can just elaborate very quickly, because I know it's getting late, that's where I'm excited about this budget, because that's where I think the partnership and the coordination between the school and the town has plays such a great effect. So, and again, I'm not holding the school committee to this, I'm giving another just example. Let's say the school budget this year comes in at 2.5%. That may give us room to that $500,000 is easy, because now we're nowhere near that 4% that we we always have to find every single year. But if this year they're at 4 and the town's at 4, then I may have to call the superintendent and say, listen, we're in trouble this year, can we kick it off till FY '26? And that's where the partner, and he may just say, no, we really need this, and that's where that communication is just critical, and I'm pretty excited about this budget year because of that.
And another key piece we have to remember, like as we go through this budget process, right, we're talking about capital improvement, we also have to remember ESSER funds are gonna be gone. And we're hitting a cliff. And whatever was used to support academics and programming and students that was through those ESSER funds, we need to make a hard decision of what are we continuing, right? And anything that does get, that needs to, I'm not saying to get, but anything that's necessary and needed for students and teaching, that's another piece we gotta consider that has to go into the operating budget. And how are we balancing that out? Just, I mean, we're in the budget season, right? And I love that you're saying the partnership, because that's really important that we are doing this together, school and town together, of what are the needs of the town and looking at all areas.
Will I know the asset management suggestion, one of them was for a grant writer. Would that be just for town? Was that their recommendation just for the town, or would that also encompass the school?
So we actually have someone that handles all town grants. So I would, and I really appreciate the efforts of the Asset Management Commission, but they know that we don't agree on everything, and that's okay. And that's been one that I've explained to them, that the way we have it running in the town, I'm very comfortable with. So we have Chelsea Dumas Gibbs handling, been very successful in getting recreation grants. Becky in planning, Becky Lamont, has been incredibly successful in getting hazard mitigation grants and coastal erosion grants and planning grants, and the fire department has been incredibly successful in getting millions of dollars of grants for equipment. We handle it department by department basis, and I personally feel that works best. To have Jane or John Doe handle all grants, it just wouldn't work for us. We have a department handle them with assistance from legal, my office, and Becky, who's really good at grants, and so it's worked out well that way. So I think a $80,000 a year grant writer would be less productive than what we do right now. So, but that's just my opinion, and I've let them know that.
Yeah. I didn't know the history, I just was.
No, I appreciate that.
Is it okay if I ask a question? In terms of what you were just saying about grant writers, would it benefit to have someone looking into energy concerns, which saves the town a lot of money? Would that money come back to us, the cost of having an energy grant writer? Would that be money that could come back? And also a question in terms of ESSER funding, that can be used for HVAC. Is there excess money in ESSER funding to be used that way?
So once again,
it's just something to consider.
Sure, and once again, for energy.
It's a ton of money that we need, and it's much more than what is in the ESSER.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because I missed the department. So energy, so public works. I mean, really, the grants that they've received in LED lighting and what is just, we're about to put all new lights on McGinn and Ryan Park, and we received hundreds of thousands of dollars of energy efficiency dollars to get this done. I know Dante's working hard as far as getting LED lighting in the different buildings. The remote net metering contract that we just put together. So we are, but I really feel that department by department is effective.
You guys can do it directly with Rhode Island Energy. There is personnel that is in charge of that, and different divisions, lighting, HVAC. They will guide you, they will even help you out, even recommend you what you need to do. So.
And you've talked to the Office of Energy Resources, OER, and the
we received an award from
Infrastructure Bank.
Yeah.
So the town, there were 3 communities statewide that received an award from Energy, TEOR, is it? And what is it? Energy, or whatever. There's an acronym for it.
Oh, yeah.
And we were invited to the State House. Dante was in a video, and we received an award. So North Kingstown was one of the 3 most productive communities in security. I'm sorry?
And Jamestown.
And Jamestown, that's right. I said that's right. That's exactly right.
We got it the second time we got it.
That's right.
First time in 2019.
And the school department has gone through the same processes and are doing the same exact thing. The stadium lights were just done in conjunction with DPW. Our tennis courts lights are getting done. So it's like they use the same exact process I used, or vice versa. So we're all doing the same thing. We had before I got here, someone had done all the LED lighting within the buildings, but that was all incentivized by grid or Rhode Island Energy.
All right.
Yeah.
And
And
so
today-
we are offer anything different or more grants than, or
So we,
help?
yeah, so we had a discussion today during our project team meeting, talking about the solar, that, you know, if we do get to build a new building, having the solar on top, and there are grants that we can apply for, and that's through the Office of the State Office of Energy, that you can apply for grants. You go through the solar company that you're using, and they apply for the grant through the state, and that comes off the top of the costs. I have experience, we do that in Jamestown when we did all of our solar. And that's, there are grants out there, we just need to be ready to apply for them when they're ready.
And they're-
I also had an email from someone in town, there are people that are willing to help us with that. I just need to reply back to them. Someone reached out that, there's a group of people that want to help us in any way to help us with any grant writing.
Can I ask who that group is?
It was, yes, I'm trying to think of the person's name. Her last name is Lico. And it was-
Yes,
it was
that's
through
in
the-
our, that's in our
Yes.
group, so that's great. Okay.
Now, you have to understand that let's say the grants or the incentives are not the same on every category. What I mean is that Rhode Island Energy may come and say, I'll pay for everything here, but I cannot pay for everything over there. So it varies depending on what you are applying for.
Yep.
But they will help you with everything, so it's not that difficult.
And it was Donna Lico.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and that's in our subcommittee of policy, and we have a couple of really good people, Tom Scoris and Meg Kerr, who have done a lot with energy concerns, so they would be happy if you need to reach out to them.
Yes, we will, and I think it's good, there are people that they want to volunteer their time to help do this work. So.
And if Meg or Tom and you wanted to, should they talk with you about concerns, or?
You point myself or Ralph? I'm sorry.
Either one of you.
Concerns regarding,
Searching for grants and other opportunities for saving a
if
lot.
they're aware of grants, by all means, send them along to us.
Okay, okay.
So I think we want to just share information regarding the roofs. We went out, we gathered additional information, pricing for roofs, just so we could start really looking at what the costs will be.
So I brought in an outside, it's actually a manufacturer's rep. Manufacturer is one of the higher end roofing manufacturers, but the person that works for them, the rep, he does work for almost all the architects that deal with schools in Rhode Island. I know Kenny's worked with Dan Wall in the past. I've definitely worked with him from Warwick to Situate to here. So he did a full, you guys all were sent the copy of the report on the quality of our roofs at this point, minus the 2 middle schools. Some need immediate assistance, which I'm working on. Others, he's given us timeframes of how long we have before we need to put a roof on the building. He's also given us price ranges from low to high. These are all, again, variables, right? We don't know, is all the insulation wet? And so there's a lot of other things we can do to do studies as we go forward. But it gave me a good insight on where our roofs were at this point today. And I immediately met with our roofing vendor who came in the day before yesterday, and we're starting to look at all that as well. And he's got some great points and ideas for us as a group as we go further into, are we gonna replace the roofs, how do we do it? They're a great resource. We have a 3-year contract with them, and they're very knowledgeable and can help us make some quality roofing decisions as we move forward.
And that will include looking at what schools make sense to be thinking about putting solar on, and how do we ready those roofs for
Potentially, yes.
solar?
So, question, the costs that were in that report are just the construction costs, and so going back to
Right.
the earlier point, they don't include soft costs.
There's no soft costs,
engineering costs
no
to develop the
escalation,
plan.
right.
So the summary table I sent was a
Right.
great transition. Thank you. So I sent a summary table where I broke out by school, the recommended year of
Do you have that,
replacement.
Mike, can you put it on there, or?
I don't have it posted. I just have
Do
it
you
sent
have-
out through email.
be able to put it up, or
I just get a
You
little
wanna make
cautious. Yeah, can we make a copy? I just don't know what's gonna be in my email box.
yeah, let me, see, I printed some before, so I just-
Gang wall.
Dead wall.
That wall this way. I know, you know that these guys will help, but they want their powers.
Oh, I know.
I
But
thought
we're
of
not,
another way.
we're not
I thought of
guaranteeing
another way to
that.
get there.
And unfortunately, it doesn't really work there.
So,
There we go.
yep. So the table here breaks it down by school, the recommended year of replacement,
Rob's making some additional copies, I only printed 10 earlier this time.
the low range, the high range. I took the soft cost based from the CMP, those are the right three letters, from what they projected for soft cost for the middle school,
PMNC.
PMNC. It didn't feel right when I said it. So I did factor in a soft cost here, as well as an escalation, because these figures are based off of if we were preparing to do the project now. So I did factor in soft cost, escalation, a total by school for a grand total, which is kind of very close to what was in the facilities conditions assessment. So you can see, we have a number of schools that they're recommending, immediate work to 2025, for 3 of our buildings, 26 for Forest Park and Stony Lane, 27 for Conesset, and 28 for Hamilton. And again, these roofs do not factor in Davisville or Wickford. Those schools were not evaluated.
So when we look at the original CIP, the draft, we had 25.7 million. And looking at the assessment we have here with an estimated cost for the soft cost and escalation, we're at 26.2 million.
And if I can just explain how I get there, what I did to figure out the 15.5%, I did the average of the low and high range. So I just met these two numbers in the middle, multiplied times 15.5, same thing, escalate it based off of the average,
And this is going with a roof, a Garland roof, which is the best you can get.
Right.
So just knowing that we went with what's the highest cost, so we know what we're working with. So we have choices that would bring the cost down. It also would be the quality of the roof, but we went with what, the best is, just to have that number.
so we know.
Right, and the other
Yeah.
notice is that this is a full replacement. Rip everything off down to the deck and start over again. So it's not, we're not just doing a little patch of insulation, it's a full replacement. So we have opportunity there as well to do the scans and find, okay, there's the insulation we can continue to use and cost us less money
And there is a 40-year warranty roof.
to go.
That you, yeah.
And just thinking of solar, when I was part of the project in Jamestown, we did the roof first, then we put the solar on, and Garland came back out, they warrantied everything, they were there, they watched the project of the solar being put on, because, depending how you're doing it, and made sure we still kept the warranty for the roof. So it is possible to do and put the solar on after you do the roof, you just gotta make sure you're working together on what that project is.
But what this
You wanna
is
say
saying is that
something?
the roofs are, there is no way to repair them. They're beyond repairable at this place. So
Correct.
there's no way to spot
Well,
check
so,
them
uh,
to save the cost. We need to repair.
No, so what I'm saying is, so understanding the roof, there's the membrane layer at the top that keeps
Yeah.
the water and moisture out. Then there's insulation layers and tapered insulation. And so we may do some nuclear scans that show that insulation level is not in terrible shape, it's not wet. So we take off the pot that keeps the moisture and rain and all weather out and replace that by only replace a little bit of insulation that's necessary.
This is
What?
a full replacement.
This is
not
rip it
going
all
the way
off
down,
and,
but we may
yeah,
not, okay.
we may not have to do
Thank
that.
you.
What is the life expectancy of these roofs?
These,
Yeah.
they've already met their life expectancy.
No, not the
40.
current ones. the ones-
Oh, so the new ones would be, if we went with a Garland product, it'd be 40 years.
Okay.
But that's why we said they're the highest, the
May
best of
choose
the
to
best.
Look at other options that are a little less than that, so. And that would bring down the cost
Right, we have opportunity to
And then
go with a
funds can be used for
25-year
something
roof
else.
or something else.
So in thinking of probably if there's any feedback for us of knowing, okay, here's the costs of the roofs, we know that, we're looking at about $37 million left in the bond in comparison to the middle school. What are some of those other top priorities we want to look at? We want to look and see if there's grants that we can use or other opportunities for school safety. Is it important to look at a certain building for educational enhancement in certain ways?
If we're going to put new roofs on, and we want, and I know you've estimated the best of the best, are we doing that with the anticipation that these schools are going to persevere or continue for that length of time? Or do we know?
I don't think we would know right now if the schools, if, every single school is going to be there for the next 30 years. I think that's not something we can estimate out at this
I'm getting
time.
at.
I don't think any of these schools we're going to say in 5 years we're going to close them either. So-
No, I don't think so either, but there's a big difference between 5 years and 40 years, or 5 years and 30 years.
And that, I think that needs to be a consideration when we're looking at the types of roofs and the warranty that you get with them and how long they last.
But you don't wanna do this every 10 years.
No.
The years next to each school is the year the roof went on?
Yes.
So they're not that old.
But I was waiting for someone to say that. So if you look at the high school, right, 2001, Ralph, look at the report and look at the roof on that. You can see what's called a scrimp, which is the inside layer of the roofing material. You can actually see it. The TPO is worn right off, and you can see the scrim. It's like it's failed, and it's what 22 years old. But they were 20-year roofs, so
They're what?
they were 20-year roofs.
Oh, really?
So they've met their life expectancy.
20-year roofs?
Yep. Yeah, nowadays you can get 20, 30, 40.
That's
Back
why
in
we're
those
looking for
days.
something that had more of a life
Oh, wow.
expectancy for the community.
And when I-
Bob, did you mention the materials?
So when I brought in Greenwood Roofing, and we talked just purely the high school, they think that the material sat on a shelf for a year or two before it got put on the new high school. Because they can tell by the width dimensions and the types of materials, it was older than the age of the building.
Yeah.
So that factors in as well. But that, believe it or not, the newest, right, the high school, is the worst roof out of all of them. That's the one I have the most leaks on.
Any questions, comments?
Are you looking for input on all the items tonight, or just review?
I would say if there's anything tonight, please say, but I would say if you could review it and forward that to us, so that way we have that information to consider.
'Cause I also think our next building committee meeting, we'll know what happens
We'll know,
on
yeah,
Tuesday.
we'll know what
Because
happens
we have
after
to
the
start
7th
getting
then.
schematic design in order to hit that February 15th. So we kind of need to know for that next meeting, what are we moving forward so we can start having the architects do their piece.
Because you have to have schematic design done for all these projects.
Each one of the projects.
For the stage 2 application.
February.
Three of the schools need fire alarms, replacement, right? I consider that to be something very, very important. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a school, the fire alarms aren't going off and something's going on.
I knew we sent it to us. Do you have another?
No.
I guess, are there anything on this list that are?
I'll print it up here. I know you guys sent it. Good.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are there anything on this list that are just non-negotiable, they have to be done, so there's not, it isn't worth commenting on because they absolutely have to meet the building code or the RIDE requirements?
So I would say Hamilton fire alarm, I think Mike and I have discussed this at length. It's met its life expectancy. You can't even get parts for it anymore. the on-court orders from eBay and places like that, trying to find the parts to keep it alive.
And so I think part of this also goes back to Bob's discussion, right? Because I think that's estimated like a $330,000, $350,000 repair. So that is something like we could handle through a capital, whereas if we were to do, I'd say walls. If we were to look at adding walls and open classrooms, think of how many $500,000 increments we'd have to save up to be
Right.
able to do walls. So it's kind of finding that balance of kind of what are our once in 20, 30 year opportunities here. You know, I think roofs are a given. We've got HVAC upgrades that very quickly add up to a large sum of money. You know, is it possible we could handle ADA upgrades and security vestibules through other annual contributions? So that is kind of my approach to this is, you know, maybe some of the lower hanging fruit we can tackle through other means, but like what are those larger ticket items we want to address? I mean, these HVAC, AC upgrades in the beginning of September, people were screaming for these. These were, I think when we put this list together, that was a very high priority. We don't so much think of it right now because we're all chilly outside.
Be aware that the fire alarm today, they even, we run through the same stuff that Bob mentioned, it's a full replacement, there is no parts or anything, even if you have it. You do a full replacement because nothing talks to each other anymore.
I think one of the things we've talked about too, Mike, and we framed it this way, is like, what are your need to haves versus your want to haves? You know, I think we always try to think of it that way in terms of what we put as priorities, sums of money that we're pulling from, which fall on which side of the fence.
And Inga, because we're kind of bundling this all together with the middle school, we don't need to think about the bundling like doing a media center and an HVAC or a media center and a roof. So right, we're gonna get the 55 or whatever number we end up with, no matter what. So I don't have to think about packaging things. It's already prepackaged.
If we package it
because
with
of
the
the
middle
middle
school.
As long as you submit it with the middle school.
Right. Because sometimes when you don't have that, we take a media center and an HVAC project, put it together, you get more incentives.
And a fire
But
alarm.
we're gonna get it all.
You know, you start playing I can get 5% for health and safety, so that'll be the fire alarm, 5% for educational enhancements, that'll be the media center.
But because it's bundled with the middle school, we get it all, no matter what. Which is good.
And then you'll even see some of these projects, we kind of bundled them together. So there was masonry cracks issues at Fishing Cove, Hamilton, Quinnesset, and Stony Lane. So that's not one school is that dollar amount,
I mean,
that
I
is the
guess
sum
my
of.
question with something like that is like, is it going to continue to cause damage to something else if we don't repair? Like, what's the unintended consequence of not fixing that immediately?
So for example, water gets into a masonry crack in the winter, it freezes, expands.
So that's a must-have. I mean, that's not an option.
And so that was the next one I was headed to. is
When we look at this, a lot of these are 1 and 2 priorities.
Are they?
A lot of these are.
If you went to Hamilton
I mean,
and
the
saw
walls,
that.
the carpeting, like, there was carpeting someplace. Is it moldy? Is it damaged that it's causing a health issue? Or is it just, it would be nice to have a new carpet?
It's probably the original carpet.
Well, the high school is
from the high
definitely the
school.
original carpet from when it was built.
So high traffic area, main office.
And
But
we've
again,
had
wear and tear,
professionally
or are we
cleaned.
talking about mold and
Yeah, no, not
health
mold.
issue?
Not mold, wear and tear.
Not yet.
But again, that's a $200,000 item. That could be down the road a few years with a capital money that we have.
Same thing, water bottle filling stations, we know how popular those are right now. We'd love to get them.
Where,
gotta be some grants for
are
this.
there, right, so even just like water bottle filling stations, what schools have them, what schools don't?
The
Are
only,
there-
so there's a regulation that says if you do any major plumbing upgrades, you have to put them in. So the schools we did major plumbing upgrades at, Hamilton, Forest Park, Fishing Cove,
I think the high school.
and the high school all have them.
But they're not widespread, I think there might be ones like.
Yeah, they're one-offs. It's not like every single location has it. I've gone out and done all the research and worked with Jem to do all the pricing, to figure out what the balance of the schools, and I think we were adding 2 more at the high school, because it's such a large building. So, and then, and I'm assuming the new middle school will have them everywhere.
Right.
With, so these numbers, are they taken from the 2018? They've been updated?
Correct, these are from the current facility condition assessment.
And so when they talk about that final 4 or 5% bonus incentive, it sounds like we already have, do we have the FCIs?
No, the FCIs would be so the FCI for Wickford and DMS, if the bond is approved, that would be reevaluated through RIDE probably sometime in the spring.
Okay, yeah, that was a little.
So there's a cost to it. There's a cost and a time period that it takes. So, you know, we're being strategic about this, knowing that the funding that's been allocated from the school committee gets us to next Tuesday. We can't plan until we know we have more money to actually finish doing the stage 2 submission.
Well, what RIDE does is they give the district an option, and you know the district can certainly go ahead and do it direct and hire their own consultant and recalculate the FCI, and that could be pretty costly. But what they do is they collect a couple of districts every year that would like to participate, and then they put the RFP and they hire a consultant, and then they split the cost because it's like a bulk work, and then each district has a portion of the cost. Say if it's 20,000 or something, I don't know how much it is, but let's say it's 20,000. It's 4 districts, so it gets split by 4. And then the district has to pay for that cost, but it actually gets incorporated into the soft costs part of the bond and the full project cost. So no one really has to like cut a check up front for this. So it's a better option. Plus another thing is, if the district goes and hires somebody, then you know there is, who do you hire? How do you qualify that professional? Is that professional really has some interest in getting this, because it's a little bit subjective whether it's FCI, whether they pass or not. RIDE takes care of it. All those questions are answered. They have a criteria. They've done it. They do it every year. So it's much more recommended to go with RIDE. But unfortunately, we do have to wait until they collect everybody and then they put out that RFP.
And I know you had done some legwork to find out that, you know, the most recent FCI reevaluations, I think all the schools were in the 50s in 2017, 18 qualified. It was some schools in the 40s that I think didn't qualify for the 65. So Wickford was at 58 point change. I don't know the exact number.
So, and so we'll know once that reassessment is done.
There it is.
But
the districts that did not qualify, Coventry was in the 30s, and South Kingstown was in the mid-40s, upper 40s, so they didn't. But Johnston, Warwick, East Providence, Cranston did qualify, and their FCI was just above 50, so, and they did qualify for 65. And that's only in the past years.
So and tell me if you disagree, my suggestion would be that this is an important enough issue where, being that we're going to know what's going to go on Tuesday, that our next meeting should probably be dedicated just to this. I mean, there's no reason for us to have any more updates on the middle school. I mean, I think we can kick that off for another couple of weeks. After that, we're going to, hopefully it'll pass, but either way, I think we're going to have a tough, we have an issue in front of us as to prioritizing this and whether we need to add in Davisville and Whitford or not. And, you know, so,
and I was going to say, even just, you know, to look at this, review it, and, you know, let's come back with some recommendations. If it's, you know, like they did us having another meeting, you know, but email me and, you know, prior to that, what is your, you know, if everyone looks at it and says, here are my priorities, here's what I think as a member of this committee we need to prioritize. We can then take that information and we can sort it, and then we can really look at this and say, okay, are we going with the entire plan, or are we going to really prioritize of what is realistic for us to do over the next 5 years.
And going back to something you asked, I think carpeting was on there. I don't think we need to do schematic design for carpeting,
No.
obviously. You know, so we said everything needs schematic design. That's, you know, I don't think tile floor replacement need, right, so we did say everything, but it's all the major things.
Well, you do, if you submit it to RIDE, you do need schematic design for carpeting.
So how would you, okay.
It's a floor plan.
It's a floor plan and it's
I mean,
a
it's
set of
something,
specs.
it's something they have on file already
Right.
that they can cut.
So it's a quick schematic design, but so with RIDE, and that is sometimes why RIDE is a reimbursement program, it's really good, but they do require same submissions for carpet for a middle school. They do not have, so there is a light version for projects under 500,000. So it's like a light submission light, so you only submit once instead of 3 times during design. But you still do need to submit your budget schedule, your drawings. Could be notated drawings, it's very simple, you know, what you're doing, but you have to submit.
So we'll do that, so please take this home, look at it, everyone kind of review, put together your, you know, your list of priorities. You don't need to worry about the cost, just the items, what, you know, based on the categories we have. And we will do that, we'll, you know, we can use our next meeting to do that. You know, one more item on here, it talks about FAQs and other related resources. Mike, you have the website up, maybe we can just point out to everyone so everyone knows the work we've been doing. The newspaper did reach out to us, one of the questions was everything you're doing. I gave them an entire list, of everything we've done on the school department end. I'm sure you did that for the town end, of what we've done to put information out there, to show, here's the plan, here's all the work we've done, here are all the opportunities, because there's been a lot done over the past few months to get this information out there. And
So, oh, sorry.
no, I think if we just point it out so the committee sees it, and then that's the last item. I know it's getting late.
So again, from the main page, NKSD.net, top center, school facility projects. And then the postcards that we saw in the presentation are at the top. And a couple more informational flyers. And then to the left side, you've got videos and public forums. So this is an interview that was conducted a couple weeks ago. The tour of Wickford, the tour of Davisville, public forum presentation and recordings. The presentation from tonight I posted as soon as I get the link for the interior fly-through. The exterior fly-through is here at the bottom. The budget estimate that we reviewed tonight has already been uploaded. Frequently asked questions were updated last week.
And we're
planning
scheduled to meet Friday
Yep.
to hopefully finish off the remainder of the questions.
Yep, link to submit a question, the Perkins Eastman project presentation from the last meeting. Then again, this is some of our older information, the facility, the whole facility master plan data collection. So this was a whole web page at one point. Then this is the shortcut to just the direct plan. The future vision of the district facilities that the superintendent reviewed back in September, the facilities conditions assessment, and capital improvement plan draft 1 that we were just talking about. So if you don't have either of those 2 documents, this is the full assessment here. And then the draft plan 1 is this one here, and it actually matches up with the information from the facility assessment.
And I would just say, if you want to share information out as committee members on social media or whoever to direct people, it's here. You can take a link and then you can just post it or share information, or if anyone's asking you, direct them back to this page. It's there in the frequently asked questions. Like I said, we're going to update again on Friday to get out for people.
The project milestones, we still list QUID on here because it was part of the history of this project, so we're not taking anything down, but there's no work going on anything related to QUID. The traffic study will be posted here as soon as it's complete, but you can see traffic, environmental, or ESA Phase 1, wetland, geotechnical, the programming presentation. I believe this is, when people ask for the plan, this is the chiclet design that we talked about earlier, the building footprint, building design, the building systems. This was one of the things that we said we were going to wait till after the bond vote to get more into this. And then, again, this is some of our older information about how we got here with the architects, and then past agendas, the meeting recordings, the minutes, and then the original stage 1 application from September. So that there's a lot of information that's here. If it's overwhelming and somebody needs to be directed to like where are those chiclets, let me know and I can go through and find it. Point you in the right direction.
Any comments, suggestions, questions?
I'll just say it's great. I missed a couple of meetings because of travel, and I went right here and got all the information I needed. So thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, I would agree. I've watched the videos a number of times.
And we've now made an adjustment to the recording, so the audio level should be better, right off the gate. We're now tied into
I
these
thought it was me.
microphones. No.
So we don't have a next meeting date. Do we want to schedule that now before we
Probably a
leave?
good idea. And I would suggest scheduling it at least a week after the next school committee meeting. I don't know when the next school committee meeting is, so
November 16th.
I would go after that, just.
I think that's Thanksgiving, though.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I only say that because, again, we're all hopeful
It is.
that it passes on Tuesday, but if it doesn't, I think to hear the school committee's reaction and next steps between the school committee and the council prior to us getting together may help,
Yeah, so,
unless,
I think timing wise, I think that might be tough because that is things, right? And that's Thanksgiving week. The 23rd is Thanksgiving. So we have a Monday or a Tuesday of that week, and I don't know if that'd be tough for this
we
group.
have a council meeting that night,
The
the
Monday is
Monday
council,
for the
so that
Thanksgiving.
just is- So Monday, Tuesday.
So you said the school committee is the 16th, it's a Thursday?
Yes.
Oh, Thursday night? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had to, we could look at the week of the 27th.
Would that be too late for the stage two?
Yeah, so you're getting further, you get deeper and deeper in where we have to meet with the other architecture firm to get all this information in front of them so they can start their process.
Maybe we meet before school, because I'm just thinking of like looking at, maybe we look at the, so the Tuesday the 14th? Tuesday, November 14th, would that be possible?
Sure. That would be a review of CIP only, and then maybe.
We just focus on capital.
I would do that, and
We'll
then.
know where we're at with the bond too, and we can have a conversation, and we do have 2 school committee members here.
Yeah.
That would be part of that, to help bring that information to the remainder of the committee, so. I'll say 5 o'clock, what works well? I think this one was 5:30, do you want to stick to 5:30?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to going to 5, but if 5:30 works, stick with it.
I would prefer.
Five?
Five would be better, I think.
All right.
I would be better.
All right, so we'll say 5 o'clock on Tuesday, November 14th.
We just have a meeting at 7 that night at the library, so that's perfect.
Okay.
It's better than 5:30.
And so we do know, so that we have so that meeting needs to end by 6:30, we have an hour and a half for that meeting that night.
And that because of me?
Well, you said you
Oh, yeah,
were
yeah,
at
even
7 o'clock.
6:45, then I go to the library. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. No, I wanna
Let's say
make sure.
6:30,
Thanks.
I think if we have a time, we know we
That'd
can
be
be.
great.
And everybody does
get
their
the work
homework.
done.
Back to the teaching days. Everybody has to do their homework.
Yes, so 5 to 6:30, and focus will be on CIP.
Give it a good
One
see
item.
which other way it is.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.